I went to art school at Pennsylvania Academy for the Fine Arts down the road. Very traditional art school. And, we drew from the nude model almost every day for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I remember that the day that I registered the first year, I said to one of the artists, and this was like 100 years ago, right? I said, I want to make art with a computer. And they went, yeah, right. So that did not go over. But after the traditional education, then eventually I migrated back to the computer, and that's what I do now. It's called creative coding. And so I write the code that does the stuff that I do. And if I can get it to go, this is one of them. Go, please. Is it going? Yeah, yeah. So this is me, or it will be. For you computer people, this is a version of the random walker routine. Unbeknownst to the viewer, the code is looking at a photograph, and I say, okay, go any spot on the photograph and get the color, and then draw a line in any direction. And I give it sort of constraints on how long and how wide the line can be. And then when you get to the end of the line, get the color again, and then do it again in a random direction, do it again and do it again and do it again. I have a friend who was watching this one time, and he was saying, well, but how does it know where the edges are of your head there? It doesn't. It's totally dumb. It's making a haystack, basically. And you can make it less haystack-like if you want to, by making the lines shorter or fatter or making dots. And you can make it a total haystack so that you can't see the figure, depending on the constraints that you give it. So it does eventually make a face. And to get one of these, the program, there's a lot of randomization, so the program runs differently every time I run the program. But this is a video taken from the program. So this one runs the same every time. So anyway, that's me. Is it through? Did you stop? Okay. So, no, stop. Don't do that. Technical difficulties. All right. There we go. This is a show that I did in March. There were 26 of these portraits around the room on 3 walls. They're 12 feet tall, and they appeared at not totally random times, apparently random times, and drew themselves and then disappeared. And then another one would come and draw itself. So there were like 17 different people. Some of them appeared more than once. And those are the musicians in the center there. I worked with a composer in London. I've only met him on Zoom, but he's very charming. His name is Matisse Saunier. If you want to look him up, he's all over the web. And he's French, obviously, lives in London, and he's 26 years old. So the two of us collaborated on this 11-minute piece where the portraits appeared and disappeared in response to events in his music. So it was very cool. Someday they are going to send me they did a video of the event, and they have not sent me the video yet. Someday I'll post it if they ever send it to me. Okay, so this is very recent, and this is what I've been doing. But back to when your eyes don't work together and they work badly together in a certain way. It's called strabismus. And so that's what I have, although there are some things that you can do about it a little bit. But first of all, let's do some definitions. Okay, so we're talking about art and the z-axis. So working definition of art only for this talk, because that's a whole course, right, to define art. Any intentional visual artifact of the culture. So this could be fine art, advertising, computer games, whatever, anything, street signs. Okay. Oh, those are the 9 muses of the arts, the Greek muses. And, I don't know them all, but, there's one for epic poetry, another one for certain kind of music, another one for some other kind of music. And I don't know if there's one for visual art. Anybody know? No. Anyway, we're going to talk about visual art anyway, even if there's no muse. Probably there is. Okay. Okay, the z-axis, obviously, x, y, and z. This way, the z-axis is a measurable real-world dimension of space. And I knew I was going to say speech perception. I spent my life saying speech perception. Depth perception is a process by which we use multiple cues to locate things on the z-axis, to tell how far things are away from us. So stereopsis is one of the cues, but not the only one. Okay, so artists use these cues in different ways to locate, artists want to influence your perception of space, right? So one way to do that is to manipulate your perception of the z-axis. So this is called Balloon Dog. It's by Jeff Koons. Anybody familiar with his balloon dog things? Yeah, there are like 700 and something of them in existence. This is one of the bigger ones. But, it's a real life sculpture. It's a real life z-axis. You can walk around the thing. If you have stereopsis, you know exactly where it is. Okay, somebody was not paying attention to the z-axis, and this was a smaller balloon dog, but it met an unfortunate demise at a gallery opening, and it was valued at, it was small, right? But it was valued at $42,000. And I understand at least 2 people offered to pay for it anyway, to pay for the pieces.
Oh, no. Maybe they thought it was more artistic.
Well, maybe so, sweep it up and lay it on your table. But the gallery refused to sell it. So, because they wanted to claim the insurance. So,
Yeah.
what can you do? All right. So stereopsis is the most accurate tool we have for locating things on the z-axis. I was a terrible tennis player. I really wanted to be Billie Jean King, and it was not happening because z-axis, 2 balls, not good. But this is within a certain range. If you're trying to figure out where something is and it's way out there, it can be too far for stereopsis to help you. And it requires 2 things, at least. 2 eyes converging on the same object at one time. And the placement of the image of that object on your retina. So it looks sort of like this. So you can see that for the closer thing, the image is going to be here and it's upside down. But for the further away thing, the image is moved in. So your brain understands the angle of of your view and computes from that where things are on the z-axis, okay? Okay, z-axis in the real world. This was an installation of mine in New York several years ago. If you walk into the room, it was a fairly small room where this installation was. First of all, if you have stereopsis, you know kind of where everything is within the space, right? But then you also understand where the panels are in relation to each other. And here's Bob helping me hang the show. He was really good about that. He always helped me hang shows. Okay, but there's a problem when you get to a flat picture plane. You can't have depth or z-axis on a flat plane, right? So you can see where the plane is, and some of the planes are further back than others, but on the plane itself, no z-axis. It's just flat. Okay, so artists have to deal with this. Artists who do 2D work like painting and so on have to deal with this if they want to influence your idea about space. Okay, so what they do is create a simulated z-axis. So this is not the real thing, right? Because this is flat. This is a painting. It's a big painting, but still it's a flat surface. Charles Willson Peale was a Philadelphia artist. He was a contemporary of George Washington's, and he painted Washington a number of times. And this curtain is a device that artists use a lot. So you know there's stuff behind the curtain. So that tells you, that's a signal right there, the curtain. I'm going to come back and talk about these things more in a minute. Rene Magritte worked in the early middle 20th century. It's hard, if you look at the background, it's kind of hard to know what's going on here. Magritte messes with you, okay? You're expecting X and he does Y. You're expecting the background to be background, but it's something else. All right, we'll talk about that some more. Okay, a simulated z-axis on this grid. Agnes Martin did a bunch of these grids. You could say the z-axis is gone. For me, it's gone. But I have some friends with stereopsis for whom the whole grid floats up off of the background. So do you all see that? Does anybody here see that? Does the grid float?
I don't know. It looks like a grid.
It just looks like a grid. No float. Okay. All right. Well, I don't see it either. So I don't know if it floats. Okay. This is Atsuko Tanaka, who was working in the mid to late 20th century, simulated z-axis. It's pretty flat, but if you look more carefully, see that lighter blue thing up there? I don't have a laser pointer. There's something in front of it. So that's a little depthy. And some of these strings or lines go behind some of the blobs. So that's a little depthy too. Plus, brighter colors come forward, the darker colors appear to recede. So some depth. What? Oh, sure. That may be the last time I need it. I don't know, but,
Well, you know,
but
it
it
should
can't hurt,
come
right?
heavy, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
That's about that.
Okay, all right. Blue thing, right there. Okay, Okay, so stereopsis is not the only cue we have. Thank goodness for me. For these cues, only one eye is required, both in real life and in paintings, artwork. So we're going to look at examples of these, but occlusion, that is, something's in front of something else. Distance size, things get smaller in the distance. Color temperature and saturation. The warmer colors, like in that other thing, appear to come forward. Do y'all know what saturation is? Color saturation? What?
Intense?
Say what?
How intense the color is?
Sort of, yeah. Want to elaborate on that, anybody?
Like the pigmentation, whether it's really, really like, I don't know what other way to say it than like literally saturation. Like,
Like you can't define the word by itself.
Yeah, exactly. When it's, yeah, I feel like intensity is a good way to say it. Like whether it's concentrated, I would say like
It's concentrated. Yeah. So if you're painting, you've got red right out of the tube, right?
Yeah.
But you can gray it down by putting a little green in it.
Yeah.
And then it's red, but it's not as red.
Yeah.
Or you can put black in it, or you can put white in it, and it's not as concentrated.
Yeah.
And in computer terms, it would RGB, it'd be 25500 would be the red. Okay. So the more saturated colors come forward. Texture gradient, things that are textury are more textury the closer they are to you. Grass is grassier, leaves are leafier. Light and shade, light things come toward you, dark things recede. Linear perspective, you're standing on the train track and you look down and everything, the train tracks appear to come to a point way down there, right? Okay. Foreshortening is usually, can be used on anything, but in art school, it's particularly, they talk about it in relation to the human body. So it has to do with your view of the body part. We'll get there. Relative motion, also called motion parallax. That is, you're sitting on the train and things up close whizzing by real fast, and things further out, not so much. Right? And then also spatially aligned curves and angles. One time, Bob and I were on vacation and we were in some quaint little village somewhere, and there was a river, not a very big river, and there were houses on the other side that you could see, and you could go over there and tour them. And I said, I want to tour the pink one with the white trim. And he said, first of all, he looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, what? And he said, that one's on this side of the river. And I said, no, the pink one with the white trim. And he said, infuriatingly, he said, that one's on this side of the river. So we had this exchange like 9 times. And finally, because, he was a psychologist, he said, take 3 steps to the left. Well, see my lack of stereopsis. I took 3 steps to the left, and the pink one with the white trim moved and the others didn't. As it happened, I could then see a sort of gray pole, and it was visually the same size as the things across the river, but it was a birdhouse, and it was on this side of the river. But because he had stereopsis, he could tell, and I couldn't tell without motion parallax. So it's useful. Okay. Let's look at these things individually. This is Rene Magritte. Again, man was crazy. So this is a conventional use of the cue of occlusion. Something's in front of something else. You know, the man is behind Bert, right? Okay. And what's weird about this painting is you just wouldn't see that, right? The man is just standing there and the bird is like right here. So this does not happen in real life. So it's weird, but his depth cue is a conventional cue. Back to Charles Wilson Peele. So there's the curtain motif. There's the depth going back like the railroad tracks there. This room is actually in Independence Hall. It's an actual room and it's still there. And it's not nearly as big as he makes it look here. And he makes it look that way because the people are a little bitty, the linear perspective goes way back. But he makes you believe it. So this is a self-portrait of his, and he was 81 years old when he did this. So pretty cool. All right, Magritte. And here is the curtain motif. So curtains are supposed to hide things, right? So you pull the curtain apart and there's stuff behind it. That's what you expect. And that's what we just saw in the other one. But here, we can't tell what these curtains are doing. Those are curtain shapes here. But the sky is on the curtains. And it's also on the sky. And none of the curtains, oh, I get to use the pointer. None of the curtains have a pole or anything at the top, right? So that's the interesting thing about this painting is that he set you up to expect X and he gives you Y instead. Okay, Magritte again.
Evil.
This is evil. It's just plain evil. So this starts out as background up here, and it's behaving itself with the rest of the background. And then it comes in front of the horse. That's weird. And then it goes back to being background. I don't like that. So, but it causes you to look, right? I mean, otherwise it's just a picture of a woman on a horse and trees. Who cares? But this is, and a part of the appeal of this painting is that it's very realistically painted. So, you know, your impulse right at the beginning is to believe it. And then you go, wait, something is wrong here. And then same thing here. This tree is in the background. And then it goes in front of the horse, partly in front of the woman. And then it goes back behind this tree. That's bad. Okay. So that is a variant of the impossible trident, which you're probably familiar with, but the impossible trident makes sense up here if you just look at that part. And then it makes sense down here if you just look at that part. But if you try to look at the whole thing, it'll drive you crazy because it makes no sense whatsoever, right? Okay. So another depth cue is things get smaller in the distance. This is David Hockney. He's a living painter, British painter. And I believe this is painted with brush. I've not seen this painting in person, but you can see that the shadows from the overhanging trees, they kind of form circles and get smaller as it goes back. And it gives you a sense of receding into the distance. So it's a conventional use, a believable use of a distance cue. This also is a conventional use of the distance cue. This is my friend Darcy Gerhardt. She is a New York artist and she works in virtual reality. So to create this, she put on the headset and painted this in space. So, there's a, digital brush, you can see it's with Russian here. So the data for this exists in a 3D space. But then what she did was she took a picture of it and then she had it printed on canvas. Now it's 2D. So even though in some sense it exists in 3D, you would have to have the headset to see it in 3D. So this is a 2D painting, and the cue for distance is the same as was in David Hockney's painting, which was a conventional painting. Okay. George Tooker. He was a late 20th century artist. Well, actually, I think he died in the early 2000s. So he's fairly recent. Realist painter. The people get smaller in the background. The people up front are larger. This is what we expect to see. I don't know why they all look so distressed. That's a different parameter. What?
The smell.
Probably, yeah, they're in the Paris subway. I mean, I don't. Yeah. So anyway, this is what we expect, right? Except that it's pretty big. I mean, there is a subway station in Tokyo that I've been in that is this big, and the people are way back there. Some of them. So it could be there, but it's bigger than you usually see in the subway. Okay, this is from a 17th century Japanese scroll called the Phantom Genji scrolls. And what you have here is different. Now, they didn't do this to be tricky. This is a cultural difference, right? These people are apparently further back than these people down here, and yet they are just as big. But this is because these people are important, and they're rendered large because they're important. And if you existed in this culture and were looking at this kind of painting all the time, you would know that, and it would not look odd. So to people who, like me, who are used to looking at Western art, this is somewhat startling when you first look at it, but it's totally on purpose, and it just means something different. By the way, I'm stoppable if anybody has a question or whatever. Okay. Magritte again. Now he did do this to be tricky. So we don't know if this is just a monstrous apple that reached monstrous proportion and took up the whole room. And there is a sort of suggestion of that, because this looks like an actual scene outside the window. Or it could be a regular apple in a doll's house. You can believe whatever you want, really. But I like the idea of the monstrous apple.
Is he a surrealist?
I would call him a surrealist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I mean, realist technique,
No,
in that's very rendered to be very real.
Yeah.
Yeah, surrealist. Yeah. Okay. Color, temperature, and saturation. This is another David Hockney painting. And this is an iPad painting. And I've seen an exhibit of his iPad paintings, and they're huge. They're like 5 feet by 4 feet. And they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. This one, you can see that the bluish, sort of more misty things go backward, tend to sort of draw you into the distance. And things in the foreground are more saturated and warmer tones. And also you can tell that it wasn't painted with a brush.
Yeah.
Because, you know, these things, looks like it was painted with a stylus or some kind of inflexible pen.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't look brushy, but they're the same width throughout the stroke. Okay, so this principle also works for video games. The misty things back there make that be the background, and the more saturated, brighter colors are in front. But that helps us know what's going on in the game. Okay. All right. There was a movement called Fauvism, where it was sort of started by Andre Derain and Matisse. And their idea was to use as much color as possible in as many places as possible. And they were just going to see what happens, like throw all the color at the wall and see what happens. Okay. So one of the things that happens is back up in here, you would expect blue misty. It's a little grayed down compared to the rest of the painting, but the whole thing is pretty flat and almost abstract. I mean, we know it's a landscape because trees, 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 trees. And this is a house or barn or something shape, some kind of a built structure. But these trees back here are just as colorful as the stuff here. So he doesn't give us any distance indicators from the color. So he violates that. He violates our expectation on that on purpose.
That was important. The Lord.
Oh, oh, I like that.
Yeah, this is a living artist. She also violates our expectation because the background is bright yellow and with some red. So it flattens the whole thing out. It's got a little depth, but it's a lot flatter because the background is so bright. All right, David Hockney. The texture gradient, the ferns are fernier, the leaves are leavier up front, right? And he painted this at Yosemite, so that's Half Dome back there. He's a British painter, but he visited this country and painted that. So that's a conventional use of that distance cue. All right, from Fortnite, same thing. And it helps you understand what's going on in the action, because things up close are more textury, things in the background are sort of more blobby and indistinct. And that's helpful to tell you, you know, when somebody's doing whatever.
Pretty rough. Yeah.
All right, so come on. Hello. So here's Shara Hughes again. So even though her background is yellow and comes forward, back in here, the texture is a lot smaller in this texture than it is up front. So it's like she's got conflicting cues. So this is a conventional use of the texture cue and an unconventional use of the color. So it's like they kind of fight. I love this painting, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know how big it is. I would like for it to be at least that size, but I don't know if it is. Giacometti.
Okay.
Giacometti is known really more for his sculpture, but he also did paintings, and I love his paintings. But his paintings are many, 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 many lines, and you have to sort of pull the figure and the whatever out of all those lines. And the thing that does help you here is the orange on her blouse, and the fact that her head is sort of isolated. But most of the painting, the texture is all the same. And his paintings were usually like that. So it's confusing and it flattens it out. And if you've ever seen a picture of his studio really looked like that too. It's a terrible mess.
Oh.
Worse than mine. Okay, light and shade. This is Syrah. The light things come forward. Her cheeks and the nose and the chin come forward, and the part of the head in the back and that is darker appears to go back. Conventional use. All right, this is a drawing of mine, a computer drawing. But the principle is the same. It's a conventional use of the light and dark. So here's the dark on the side of his neck and makes that go back. And also here under his cheeks makes it go back. And so that you can, even though the form is not filled in, you can see that it's a face and that it, you know, what his expression is, so on. Okay. Is that a question I can answer or not?
Oh, no, I
No.
don't know.
Okay.
Say about who it was.
Oh, his name is Austin,
Oh.
and he lives in Austin. As do I. I live in Austin. Okay, this is Chuck Close. And how many have seen a Chuck Close painting, actually? Yeah, yeah. So they're humongous. This is probably 6 feet tall, might be 5. And this is a self-portrait and conventional use of light and dark. So the light parts come forward, his nose, cheeks, and his beard, that comes forward. The darker parts recede, but there's a sort of diagonal grid on the painting, and he did a lot of these. And in each of the little squares, there's a whole little world. It's like he did something different in each of them. So this is an unconventional approach, but the cue itself is the light dark cue is conventional. Here's another painting, but it just gives you a better idea of what's going on in the squares. So, you know, he painted each one of these individually, and these things are, depending on the painting, they're like maybe this big. So he had he was in a wheelchair, and he actually painted, he could move his fingers, but his wrist was braced and he would have to paint like this. But he had these canvases on a sort of roller and a hole cut in the floor. And somebody could, you know, like a Venetian blind, you know, you could pull the painting up so he could paint on this part and then, you know, pull it up some more and he could paint on the next part. And it seems like a really difficult process. Okay, this is another one of my pieces. This is Stephen, but and he's going to be not completely filled in, but you'll be able to see that it's face partly because of the light and dark. So there's light on his cheek. Are we stalled? No. And light on his chin when the chin appears. And even though these are just sort of haystack marks, you'll be able to pull out his face, partly because of the color, but also partly because of light and dark. He was in the show in March at 12 feet tall. Yeah. I'm sorry. What?
That's not the gremlins.
I told it how many cycles
Oh.
in the program. And then I made the video from the complete program. It makes it for each frame, it saves an image. And then I make the video from the saved frames, but it stops. Let's see, this one is 6,000 frames. Yeah, yeah. So I could take any of those frames and print it, for example.
We had a bunch of seminars about AI yesterday.
Yeah,
So when you were describing the process of making like piece of same code and give them instructions, there's a lot of controversy about like AI creation of art images, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And to do that, you have to give it instructions and stuff. So like, what's your stance on something like that? It's a similar idea, except you're doing more of the manual coding.
yeah. This is old-fashioned computer coding, where you say how many, do loops and things. What is my stance on that?
Like, would you classify an AI creation of art, like AI imaging, painting as art? If like, I don't know if what you do is a comparable process.
I am still thinking about this. This is all really new,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what to think about it. I think it probably is art. But
Yeah, based on,
I mean-
on our different, on our work.
yeah, it fits the working definition, right? So it's an artifact of the culture. I don't know. I think this is a knotty but interesting problem.
I think a follow-up to that would also be like, okay, if it's art, is the person who prompted an artist? I think that's also like a complicated kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think it's different from what you do because you're doing it manually, right? You're
Yeah.
doing it all of the like coding in itself is already like this kind of like long-winded task. How long does it take you to do one of these?
well, to write the program, it takes about 15 minutes.
Okay.
But to get one that's good, I throw away probably 50 because it creates just garbage.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know yet, but check with me next year.
Okay.
I'm gonna spend the year thinking about it. Question. Yeah, you-
Just out of curiosity, have you ever thought of recreating one of your pieces like with hand? Because it feels like that these are like doable with like either
Yeah.
canvas and paintbrush or like actual physical items.
Yes, I have thought about that. And I have some earlier things that I did where I did something on the computer and had it printed on acetate, clear acetate, and then I painted something else on that. But to recreate this, I think would be an interesting thing to do. It'd be really hard because there's 6,000 brushstrokes for a 2-minute one. And it is sort of a step toward AI because if I were to paint this guy, I would be using a lot fewer than 6,000 brushstrokes and doing it by hand. So, okay, then to do this, I tell the computer, okay, I want you to do this and then this, and then I do it again and do it again. Okay, and then it does what it does. And then with AI, you would use presumably a word prompt. And so that's another step back from the use of the hand. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Something I can show that's related to this, which is there's a dancer in Philadelphia, Andrew Simonet, who was trying to actually pass a mark that would say that something was human invented. And so you would have like a little mark on things that humans actually did.
Oh,
I don't know if it'll pass.
wow.
This is,
Wait,
yeah.
it's like the Pennsylvania law? Like same old?
It's not, he's just talking to artists right now and saying, mark your work as human invented.
Yeah.
And let's.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's not. Very much good problem. We live in small towns.
Becky,
So, Shirley, you said you throw away a large number of the. But, as you're doing that, do you become, do you get some insight into, how to generate ones that you wouldn't? throw away? So that the next time around, if you do something similar, you might throw away 5 instead of 50.
no, because it's so random. There's so much randomization. But what I do get insight in, did you all hear the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What I do get insight into is what I'll accept.
Hmm.
And I find that I loosen up in what I'll accept. But it'll create weird stuff, like it'll create like a Francis Bacon painting, which if you all know, it's horrible, you know, horrible things, on purpose horrible. But it'll create something with like the lower part of the face missing. And it's like creepy. And if you're going for creepy, that's fine. But if you're not, then you throw it away. Or maybe it's only got the left half of the face that's rendered. And I come to find that, like the one that I put up of me earlier, there's a hole in part of my head. But that was okay. An earlier version of my working with this, I might have said, oh no, that's not okay, I have to throw that away. But with the head mostly rendered and part of it missing, okay. But it does influence your perception. So you look at these things and you see something you've never seen before. And that influences your perception for what's next. Okay, don't do that. There we go. Okay, so some artists don't care about light and shade. This is a Matisse. It's very flat. It's all the same color. That's what he wanted to do. Okay. Linear perspective. You're on the railroad tracks. There's a vanishing point. This is David Hockney. He was obsessed with swimming pools. I don't know how many swimming pool pictures he had, but many, many. And in this painting and the ones like it, I think the linear perspective is really the only depth cue. I can't figure out another one. That's pretty much it for this. All right. Like I say, he did a lot of them. This is the same pool. I'd like to know if he painted it standing on the diving board.
Wow.
Wow.
I know, and there are more. Different time of day.
This one looks more like less spooky than the other ones. The other one, like it was like disembodied in space.
It's wild at night, right? Like the other ones.
Yeah, but it's like night.
Yeah, this one's weird.
Other plane of reality.
Yeah, this is a nightmare pool. Yeah.
Back to space.
I know it's not like a monocular depth cue, but could you consider like experience as like a depth cue here? Like most of us have had the experience of like being on a diving board and like looking at a pool from that angle, and so that like confers depth in a way. You know, what I'm trying to-
Yes, I think so. Experience does matter, and this is monocular, but experience matters actually also for stereopsis. I'm doing a series of exercises to try to achieve stereopsis, and there's a book about this. What's called? It'll come to me. Susan Berry is the author, and she had the experience of getting in her car one day. She was doing these exercises, and suddenly the steering wheel jumped out at her. She was like, "Oh my goodness!" So if you know that something is closer, and you say to yourself, "This really is closer, and I know I'm looking with two eyes," I think it's depthy. you can convince yourself top down. And so in that case, experience would matter. But normally, it's bottom up and perception just happens and you don't consider it rationally. Okay, swimming pool. All right, this guy is, I hope he's in treatment for OCD. This is a tour de force. This is an amazing thing. So the linear perspective, it goes down to a vanishing point. You are standing on the sidewalk here, and these buildings go down to a vanishing point down there somewhere. And then over here, you have reflections of what's over there. And I think what it is here's a window, a shop, like a shop window. Here's another shop window. Here's a door. And here's another shop window.
The shine is crazy.
Yeah, I know. And it must have taken him forever. This is not a photograph. This is a painting.
What medium is it? Like,
It's either oil or acrylic, and I don't know.
okay.
That's crazy. How do you get shine?
Yeah, yeah,
Details of the column, the shine in the column.
yeah.
These are the.
And if you look this guy up on the web, he's got a lot of things like this.
So.
And very, well, he's called a hyper realist. And in fact, if you're walking down the street and something looks that real, you probably have had too much coffee.
Real.
Okay.
Oh,
Linear perspective that isn't linear, that it's not Western linear perspective. This is something else. And this is on purpose. It's not that they didn't know. For one thing, it's this kind of painting is called roof blown off. So we are to assume that there is a roof on this building. But because the artist knows that we know there's a roof, he's going to tell us what's going on here. So we can look at that. But also, the cultural custom. So you're standing on the railroad track and it looks like they come to a point, right? But if you walk down there, you know it doesn't. They don't. So that's what you know. But what you see is that they come to a vanishing point. But this is what you know. And this is a different philosophical approach to reality. And who's to say which one is better anyway? I mean, not that you have to say one is better. But here is a schematic of it. So this, in Western art, this is mostly what we do. This is what we see. So these lines here converge toward a vanishing point that's down there somewhere. And the tiles converge, the door, everything. And here, they don't. They stay parallel. Parallel lines stay parallel. Just a philosophical difference. And for vanishing points, you can put them everywhere if you want to. So this is an Escher, and you can start to feel a little sick if you look at this for a long time. But it was on purpose, it wasn't like an accident. All right. For shortening, this is a painting, I think it's oil, by Kehinde Wiley, who did the Obama portrait. And so this guy's leg looks really short. But if he were to stand up, it'd be great big long, right? So that's what's called foreshortening. And in art school, you usually use that term about the figure. This is a little drawing of mine I did instead of paying attention to the concert. This arm is a little bit foreshortened compared to the other one. Spatially aligned curves. Bridget Riley was a 60s pop artist, and she's still living. She's a Brit. So how many people see that as going in? Okay, how many people see that as coming back out? Yeah. How many people can see both? I have to work at it, but I can see, I can change it. But I originally see it going back.
Yeah, I see those.
It's a tunnel. It's like a little.
It's a tunnel or not. All right. Angles, same thing. So it looks like there's kind of a shelf right here. And then this is behind this stuff here. And here's another like little partition. And this is in front of that perceptually. And you can see this with one eye. These are monocular cues. All right. Relative motion, motion parallax. So Yayoi Kusama is a Japanese artist. She was big in New York in the 60s. And in the 60s, she was having happenings at her studio. And people would come to her happenings with no clothes on. And she would paint polka dots on them. She's seriously into polka dots. But this is a more recent thing. This is a room. And that cube there is a mirrored cube. It has nothing painted on it. It's just mirrors. And it's like 8 feet tall. So it's pretty big. So you walk into this room. And if you look at the reflected polka dots on the cube, they move differentially from the polka dots that are painted on the wall. Now, I have not seen this in person, but it seems like it would be kind of nauseating. Probably. Yeah. This is another one, and I have a friend who's seen this one. This is kind of the opposite because the floor and the ceiling and the walls are mirrored, and then these things hang down into the space, and some of them are painted on the walls. And she says it is nauseating, and motion parallax really doesn't help you. Well, where it normally would, but not for this. And she says it does make you feel a little sick. Okay. So some technology, I'm just going to touch on this briefly, some technology to create the perception of depth in virtual environments. One of the things that is common now is to create a polygon mesh. So you have these points on like a head or something, and you connect the dots. This is to create the illusion of depth. And a light source, then, the light source is going to have a different amount of light on each of these surfaces. So if the light source is here, then these are going to be darker back there. And that creates the sense, the perception of depth. And the more points you have, the smoother the rendering of the form. And this is monocular. You don't have to have stereopsis for this. For on-screen environments where this is a recreation of stereopsis. Have you all been to like a 3D movie with the red, green, or the cyan glasses?
I don't think they use red.
Say what?
I don't know if they've been to a red, green, 3D versus like the polarized.
Yeah, right.
That's
That's another way to do it. It's polarized. Yeah, right. In 100 years ago, or maybe 200, there were movies in the theaters where they would pass out these glasses as you went in, and then you would see the projection system projects this so that one eye sees one of these images, the other eye sees the other one, your brain fuses them, and the image appears to come forward. Now, for me, it never did. It always just looked like that, even with the glasses. And people were at these movies going, oh, and I'm, what? I actually went to Disneyland one time with a bunch of people from Bell Labs, and I'm standing next to Mark Liverman, and there are these in this room, and there are these gremlins that are apparently, for the other people, appeared to be pouncing toward us. And I'm just looking at him going, and Mark and everybody else was going, ah! So it's one of my fondest images of Mark, actually. Okay, so this is the first use of this technology was in 1922. So it's really old. It's been around a while. Okay. Virtual reality. Again, this is what my friend Darcy does. So you put on the headset, you can paint in 3D space, and the content exists in 3D. So you would need either stereopsis or a recreation of stereopsis to be able to see it in 3D. Augmented reality is a kind of hybrid. Darcy works in augmented reality a lot, and that is she painted this with a headset in three-dimensional space, and then you can go to this spot, and with the right trigger on your phone, you can view this through your phone, but you're looking at a 2D surface. So even though the data exists in 3D, what your perception is, it's monocular. So it's a hybrid. Okay, and if you want to follow up on any of these, here's some references. And if anybody has any other questions, comments. You, yes.
So do you remember the first time you got an idea in your mind to create an art using the code? What inspired you?
What? Say that again.
Oh, yeah. Do you remember the first time you decided to make an art using the code, and what inspired you?
Inspired me. Okay, I'm thinking. What? Yes, I remember the first time. The first time I made something in code and what inspired me. The first time I made something in code, I had been working after art school, I stopped painting and started working in Photoshop. But this was a long time ago, and I was bumping up against the edges of what Photoshop could do. And I was frustrated. And one day I was just scrolling through the web, and I found processing, which is a computer language for graphics. And it was new days for processing. And I saw some of what somebody had done in processing, and I went, oh, wow, this would solve my problems, because I had ideas that I couldn't do in processing, and I didn't want to do them in Paint anymore. I wanted to try to do it on the computer. So once I found processing, then I had the tools, and I could just do all sorts of stuff. And I could, when I made mistakes, interesting things happened. And it allowed me to make mistakes that I could then build on later. So I'm not sure if that's inspiration, but something like that. Okay, anybody else? Yes?
I'm curious on how you feel the difference between, like, I feel like when we're doing creative work, there's this kind of like flow state that you reach, and I'm curious how different does it feel to do that in like the coding aspect, like working on the computer kind of art versus traditional art, because I know that's like your background too.
the state of flow, is it different from computer work,
Yeah.
from like working with a brush?
Yeah.
In my experience, no,
See.
it's the same.
That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's like the world goes away and you're doing this wonderful thing and you're just in love with it and it's marvelous. And of course, the next morning you wake up and you go look at it and you go, oh my God, what did I do? What was I thinking? But at the time, the state of flow is the same.
feeling.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's unfair. One more.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.